Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on this beautiful fall day for IDOE and InSource. And this gathering happens the fourth Tuesday of the month, all during the school year, except for December. My name is Lisa Paddock. I am one of the assistant directors at InSource and also the Green Team leader here for the Central Indiana team. And we are so glad that you got to join us today. So I would like to introduce to you today Michelle Oja. She is one of the special education specialists at IDOE. We so appreciate her time and talent coming today. She's going to be speaking about the IDOE Parent Survey, which is linked to Indicator 8. And InSource has been working very hard to raise awareness of parents about this survey to try to help support parent voice to the districts so that they have good feedback. So today, Michelle's going to talk about the IDOE Parent Survey. Additionally, she's going to talk about another component of parent and school communication, and that's the CPAC, the Special Education Parent Advisory Council. And toward the end, I will drop some documents in the chat. One is a document for directors, just giving some information about CPACs, and the other is a community or parent document about CPACs. So without any other delay, welcome everyone today. And again, InSource is your parent training and information center. We're here to help families understand their special education questions and options. And at this point, I will turn it over to Michelle. Welcome, Michelle.
Good afternoon and/or morning, everyone. If you are in Central Time, then it is definitely still morning where you are. I am going to share my screen, hopefully. Are you seeing my presentation at this point?
Yes, Michelle. Thank you.
Perfect. Great. So, as Lisa said, I'm going to talk about how you can engage with school, and there's two different ways that we're going to talk about it today, as Lisa mentioned, the parent survey, and then CPAC, those special education parent advocacy councils. So we're going to focus on the Indiana Department of Education's parent survey first. And this is part of our integrated monitoring system. So every year, if you have a student who is receiving special education services through an IEP and or a service plan, then at the annual case review, or really anytime you're having a case conference, you should be offered the parent survey. The parent survey is anonymous. There is no self-identifying information given to school corporations. However, there is some demographic information that we're collecting. And the reason for that is because when we do our federal reporting, the Office of Special Education Programs, who we report to at the federal level, needs to see that there is representativeness, meaning that all schools and races and ethnicities and disabilities and languages and grade levels in the state of Indiana are being included in this parent survey. And so we collect this data not to say, hey, Michelle Uja filled out the parent survey, as someone who can fill out the parent survey. It's awkward. I administer the parent survey and I fill it out as well. So we're not giving schools the fact that Michelle filled out the survey. We're asking you to give us your demographic information so that when we report this survey information data federally, we're able to say, yes, we are reaching out to the entire state and we are capturing the information for the entire state. But these 6 things that we have here on the screen, that information is not shared with school corporations. What is shared with school corporations? These topics. How are you participating in understanding special education services in your school? How are they doing as far as explaining to you what your rights are as a parent or family member of an individual who's school age, who's receiving special education services through that individualized education program, that IEP, or that service plan, that SP. Understanding the evaluation process and the reevaluation process, and how those two, that initial evaluation versus that reevaluation, are similar and yet different. Knowing what's supposed to be in those IEPs, knowing how to ensure that things are accessible to you. So having a parent advocate from InSource, having a facilitated IEP, having someone there to just be able to support you is part of that accessibility factor. But then if your first language isn't English, having someone there to interpret the meeting for you so that it's in understandable language for you. Knowing how your village is not you on an island, being able to access both state and local community organizations and resources, and then making sure that that child that you care a lot about is accessing opportunities that are available to their peers that don't have an IEP or a service plan, and making sure that you are aware that your child is just as entitled to things like field trips and sports and clubs and anything under the sun that might be happening in that school building. So all of this information on this slide is collected and sent to school corporations as long as they've received at least 10 responses across the whole school corporation. So it's really important that we get lots of people responding, because unless we have 10 responses, we can't guarantee that the school's not tracking and knowing who's responding. And so if we've got at least 10, then they can't say for sure, oh, well, Michelle is saying that she strongly agrees with understanding parents' rights, um, or she, strongly disagrees with giving consent. So we're gonna give her a hard time. Now, school shouldn't be giving you a hard time, regardless of how you fill out the survey. So if they are, that's a whole separate issue. But um, this is the information that's collected, that's shared, and we need to have a minimum of 10 responses so that we can have you be anonymous. So every meeting, like I said, every case conference meeting, whether it's the annual case review, that ACR, or just a general stopping, revising with a meeting, you should be offered this survey. And so feel free to take a moment to put your phone to the screen and grab the link. The link is good for the entire 2024-2025 school year, and bookmark it, because that way you have it whenever your friends or family that you know of across the state might, you can say, hey, here's the parent survey. I know you had a case conference recently. In case school forgot to share the link with you, now you have the link that you can share with them. It's only good currently for the 24-25 school year. So if you go to this link at the beginning of August in 2025 and it's not working, it's because there's a new link for the 25-26 school year. And we'll do this presentation again next year and we'll have the updated link for you, but it's always available on the IDOE website as well. So, and Elaine, thank you so much for putting the link in the chat. I appreciate that. I unfortunately am not able to multitask. I was going to put links in at the end. So if you are someone who hates doing online surveys, there are paper versions available. And then if you are on this chat forum and you're taking a look, just a glance, this one link works for English, Spanish, and Burmese, but then for paper, there is English, Spanish, and Burmese versions as well. Michelle Jones, I see you have your hand raised. I'm going to pause and take your question.
So I just have a question. With the paper version, is that something they can just get from like the front office at the school? Or, okay.
Yeah,
so
they should be able to, the front office should have it. They should have it in the room that they're having the case conference in, or Worst case scenario, they can grab it off of the Department of Education website
Okay.
and print it off and send it in to us.
Perfect.
And then they don't have to mail it to us. They can snap a picture of it or scan it and provide it to us through email as well. In the chat, Jessica asked if it's available in other languages besides English, Spanish, and Burmese if requested. And the answer is yes. However, it's up to your school corporation to provide that translation. But that's why that home language that I showed on a couple slides ago is so important, because what we do with that is we monitor how many people are taking the survey who identify as their home language being something other than English, Spanish, and Burmese. And once we get a good number of people who are saying, hey, we speak Mandarin, for example, then we'll be able to put the resources, we'll be able to put the expense and the resources into getting the survey translated into those other languages. The department doesn't want to is not able to have it available in as many languages as we are able to have the procedure of safeguards at this time, but we're working towards that. So the goal is that all the languages that you see the procedural safeguards in right now, eventually the survey will be available into, but we want to make sure that because the survey does change on an annual basis, whereas the procedural safeguards does not, that we're not spending money in a spot that could be allocated elsewhere when it comes to family engagement, if that makes sense. So yeah, if you know of a large number, so 10 or more people who would benefit from the survey being in a certain language, I'm going to put our monitoring email for the Office of Special Education in the chat at the end. Lisa, don't let me forget. And then you can reach out, let us know, hey, there's this population of at least 10 people who would definitely take this survey in whatever language it might be. I use Mandarin as an example because I know that we do have a population of people in our state that speak Mandarin, and we're getting pretty close to having it translated. But Mandarin's a tricky one to have translated, just like Burmese is a tricky one to have translated too. So. Any other questions about the parent survey before I change gears and talk about CPACs? Okay, well, if you think of any questions about the parent survey between now and before our time is over today, feel free to raise your hand and we can circle back. I am happy to talk about the survey more. So we are going to talk about CPACs now. CPACs are part of special education law in Indiana. So from Article 7, public agencies are encouraged, not required, but encouraged to establish and or support the establishment of a parent advisory council, committee, task force, or group. And the public agency, so public agency in this case is a school corporation, and the school corporation includes charter schools and traditional public schools. And the whole purpose is to support student and family members in the school community, invite parents of students with disabilities to participate on school decision-making committees, and foster effective communication with families focused on student learning and developing. So what does that translate to? That translates to a parent-driven group that provides input to the local school corporation or local education agency, that's what LEA stands for, on a system level to address challenges and or needs in special education and related services. So when I say system level, I don't mean like Johnny needs to be getting an hour and 30 minutes of extended time and he's only getting an hour of extended time. We need to address this. That would be at the individual level. System level would be hey, we don't have enough speech language pathologists to ensure that all of our kids are getting the service hours that are in currently written IEPs. That would be system level. And given the speech language pathologist shortage in our state, that it would actually be something that could come up in a CPAC meeting, and a CPAC could work to um, present policy changes or procedural changes that we could make to help ensure that the number of speech language pathologists that you have can effectively manage their caseloads. There's a variety of things you could do with that, and we're not going to go down that rabbit hole today. So that's what I mean by system level versus individual level. So why should your school corporation create and champion a CPAC? Well, there's 4 different reasons, and I've mentioned a couple of them, but I want to reemphasize them. It's going to increase proactive involvement of families. And what I mean by that is it's much better to be involved when you don't have a complaint or a concern than when you do have a complaint or concern. Because if you're involved before you have a complaint or concern, then you might not find yourself ever needing to have a complaint or concern because your needs are being met all along. And if your needs are being met at the individual level, then hopefully systematically they're being met as well. And in that, your child is hopefully getting access to the supports and services that they need, and therefore they're able to meet their highest level of potential. All kids have the ability to do amazing things. It's just how do we provide the appropriate supports to get them to do the amazing things that they can do, and recognize the fact that they can do really cool things. So being proactive enables us to be able to focus on the really cool things that our children can do, as opposed to having to fight to have them be able to do the bare minimum that they should be able to do. Having those high expectations takes work, and so if we can just meet them at their basic level, then we can get to those higher expectations. And so we can identify unmet needs and solve issues ahead of formal complaints. When we have a system where the only way that things get addressed is by reaching out to my colleagues over in dispute resolution and saying, hey, free appropriate public education isn't happening right now, FAPE isn't happening right now, then things just never get to the level that they should. So if we're able to identify unmet needs like those speech language that we need more speech language pathologists and address it before it gets to a complaint level, then more kids are getting the speech services that they need. Receiving direct feedback from families allows you to tell the school how they can improve services, how they can improve programs, how they can improve policies and practices, so that there's that transparency there, so everybody's on the same page and able to move forward with that common goal. And because of that, not just kids with IEPs and service plans, but all kids can have a better educational outcome. Because oftentimes what's good for a special education student is often very much, I'm going to say it over and over again, good for general education students too. A lot of universal supports that we put in to IEPs really are universal because they're helpful for everybody. And so when we have a group of parents and family members who are proactively engaged, who are giving that direct feedback around services and programs and policies and practices, then we have really good response to intervention. We have really good tiered support, and then everybody wins. So Lisa put some really great information about CPAC, or she's in the process of doing it, in the chat. If you are looking for assistance in getting started or involved, I have shamelessly planted people in our office hours today to answer questions, but also I have two other ways for you to share your interest. So one is this interest form here at the bottom of the screen. And then if you're just looking for just general guidance about the fact that this is a national thing, not just an Indiana thing, this national CPAC guide QR code is really great. So the jot form to show us that you want interest and you'd like to have us reach out to you is that bottom QR code. Things that we're going to ask you to do if you are a parent or family member of or a student, if you happen to be a student and are taking your lunch break to be on office hours today, congratulations, I'm super proud of you. To schedule some time to speak to your special education director or your superintendent, because in order for this to work, both administration and families have to participate and coexist together for this to be effective. And so we can't just say, oh, Indiana Department of Education School Corporation, which doesn't exist, which is why I'm using it, we're a group of parents and we're going to put this CPAC together and it's going to be great. If you don't have admin participation and support and buy-in, it doesn't work, because then you can't influence practices, procedures, policies, and programs, which is the whole main purpose of a CPAC. You're going to want to figure out who champions would be at each school building within your school corporation. And there's a variety of ways to do that, and we can talk about what that looks like. And then understanding that first QR code that's here at the top. And I'm actually going to put my mouse over the QR code now so you can actually see what I'm talking about. I had the mouse on the wrong screen before. So this QR code is a national guide to CPACs. Which is what the current CPACs in the state use as their guiding document, along with the documents that Lisa has put in the chat for forming CPACs. But there's a whole collaborative being formed of CPACs across the state who are working together to help each other as they're developing their CPAC and running their CPACs. And in a moment, when we get to questions and answers, the people who I've shamelessly put in the chat who are leading their CPACs, if they want to pop in and chat and share their experiences, if people are interested in that, they can. But this interest form is the second QR code, and that's a way of filling out a jot form. I love jot forms; they're my favorite. To say, hey, let's set up a time to chat. If you're a community member, you want to say, recognize that this is important, but you might not have a child attending school anymore, but you still are invested in your school community. These three bullets are really great ways to support as well. So I mentioned that I was going to put the monitoring email in the chat at the end. It's also here on the screen right now. So if you have questions about the parent survey, if you have questions about CPACs, rather than me giving you my direct email and then me being on vacation the one time you want to reach out, or be taking my child to a doctor's appointment, which is how I spent my morning today, reaching out to this OSE monitoring inbox is the way to go. So that way you can get your question answered sooner rather than later. I'm also going to put it in the chat here as I'm thinking about it again. And anyone on the monitoring team will be able to get you a parent copy of the survey. Will help you be able to get that paper copy if you have it filled out, sent in to us. If you need the link again so that you can fill out the survey online. If you want to set up a time to do it over the phone because you don't want to fill it out in paper and you don't want to fill it out online, but you do want to take it, we do it over the phone as well. If you're like, hey, I know 10 people who would be love to have it translated into Chen. I'm trying to think of another language besides Mandarin that is starting to pop up. Or, hey, do you know how to make this in ASL? with videos, because we are getting people who speak American Sign Language who are identifying as speaking American Sign Language as part of their home language in the survey. And there is actually a way of doing that that we can consider for the online survey down the road, with a partnership with CCHE, the Center for Deaf and Hard of Hearing Education, which I butchered their acronym, so hopefully I didn't butcher their full out written name, but Sarah will forgive me, hopefully. So yeah, that is parent surveys and CPACs. And Lisa, I don't know if you have a
I
question or
do.
a thought.
Before, we also asked Stephanie and Mindy to speak. So we know that we have several people on, quite a few in-source people, some other people, but other people will be watching this at another time. So just wanted to have a little bit of a general discussion, because with the parent survey, you can ask to fill that out at any time. Maybe you're not offered that, right? It is not just a once a year, though that's going to be probably the most common time you'll hear it. Your in-source staff, so we are across the state, we have special education liaisons, and they help families understand the special education process. They teach them how to advocate. We don't call ourselves advocates, but we help families learn to advocate, and then children learn to advocate as they grow older, and we want to help them understand the process. So when your SEL, special education liaison, attends a meeting with you, a case conference, then there's a survey that's sent out, and it also includes the IDOE parent survey. So that's another way. They can also, of course, go to the website for IDOE. We have information about the parent survey. Your special education liaison for in-source can send it, and we are out talking to directors about the fact we're doing a parent survey campaign. We are talking to families so that we can increase the participation, because just as Michelle said, we feel that both components, the CPAC component and the parent survey, are ways to reduce complaints and due process by, as Michelle said, starting at that local level, speaking to your special ed director. So please note that IDOE and in-source can both be of assistance, and that it is very, very important for parent voice to be heard. So parents, we really encourage you to be filling out those parent surveys, asking for them if they're not offered. When it comes to CPACs, then we again feel it helps reduce complaints and due process. As in-source staff, we are talking to directors. We have an actual presentation about it, and we refer to the national document and assist in trying to help give some framework and some structure. Because there, as Michelle, as you said, there are some things to think about. It's not a support group or a PTA, right? It is something very different. And so what will that structure look like? How will members be decided? What will be the combination of parents and perhaps school staff? What will it look like? There are several known components that work together to make a CPAC more effective and to be able to get to be known, right? And so then they come together and they set some goals or objectives and measure data to see if that happens. But one of the very first things all has to do with parent need. What do the parents need in the district? So in-source has been talking about that. IDOE has been talking about it. The two ladies that are on today have been talking about it in their own CPACs, and there are meetings going on. So we are very happy if you are watching this now or at another time, you're a community stakeholder, you're a parent, you're a teacher, please share the information about both parent survey and CPACs. We believe that it is the best interest of children, families, and schools to have good communication. And that's what addressing needs can be done through both avenues, along with celebrating victories, right? It is very important. So Michelle, at this time, I was going to call on Mindy and Stephanie, if that works well. Okay, let's start with Mindy. How about if you tell us a little about yourself and your CPAC, and then Jennifer, and then Stephanie can.
Okay, sounds good. Hi, everyone. I'm Mindy Cooley. I'm a parent in Westfield. My current day job is an occupational therapist. I work in a hospital right now. My dream job is to do CPAC full time. So I'm working towards that because it's just a wonderful experience as I started and created my CPAC with the partnership of my administration, with Lisa's tutelage, using that national guide that we had linked in. And some of my other partners around the state, like Stephanie Garner from Plainfield, that already had her CPAC going. We created the Westfield CPAC. And so it's been a wonderful experience personally, but then also in a bigger way, helping with systemic things going on in the district and just seeing how that really improves the outcome of students by improving parents' understanding and bringing that parent voice to what's going on in the district. The teachers like it, the administrators like it, the parents definitely like it, and we're seeing that impact in programming for students and outcomes. But like Lisa said, it does take some thought and intention when you're creating your CPAC. But it really is more than just a parent group. It's a collaborative group with your district, with your teachers and your administrators. So it's a model that really champions the parent voice and partnership. And when you approach it that way and create it that way, some really good things can happen. Of course, there's always bumps in the road, but just like Michelle mentioned earlier, when you work those things out and collaborate proactively ahead of big issues, then when you have to tackle something big, you can get through it. Everybody wants what is best for students. And when you keep your eye on that ball, it does help kind of with all of the other things that can get in the way of that process. What I love about CPAC is that it's been around for a long time. It's not a new concept. The National Guide was created by all of the parent training centers around the country. And Lisa was from our parent training center from InSource, the one to give some input into that guide. So it's written into IDEA, it's written into Article 7. So it's not a new thing, but it is something that isn't prolific in the state yet. But it beautifully aligns with the dual capacity framework that we're learning a lot about now, and also the statewide family engagement initiative that's going on. In Indiana, it's the EFEC grant. So CPAC just fits in beautifully with that dual capacity framework where parents and school are working together to help in the education of students. So as we have grown in the Westfield CPAC, Stephanie and I had this, we're always doing these mastermind things where we're like, how can we make this even better? So I think it's been well over a year now, we developed the Indiana CPAC Collaborative. So there are other districts around the state, parents and administrators that are forming CPACs. And so we get together quarterly on a call to talk about like where we are with our own CPACs, what's going well. We bring in some of the tools and things that we're creating with Lisa through InSource to help administrators understand, to help parents understand so that they can get their CPACs up and running. And then also keep them going because, once you stand it up, it doesn't just stand up by itself. So it's an ongoing model of communication and engagement. And then recently here in Westfield, Michelle Jones, who is my special education liaison, and I and my special education director, we now are starting to meet regularly. And Michelle comes to my CPACs meetings when she can, or she always gets the notes if she can't. So I know that there are probably a lot of districts in your territories, but that is a great way to also have a connection to CPAC, is just to know who the parent lead is and can connect with them. So I'd like to invite you all, if they're the people that are on the call that are we probably have a mixed audience, don't we, Lisa? We have probably parents, we have special education liaisons, and we might have some people from schools. Okay. I'm seeing heads nodding. So, we'd love to invite all of you to the Indiana CPAC Collaborative calls. If you're interested in learning more about CPAC, a benefit to you as a special education liaison, you could see what districts are on the call that are in your territory, so you can see where CPACs are working already. Either they're emerging, or they want to be, coming on, or they're already running. So if you'd like to be on that quarterly call, there's one tonight. So Lisa could probably, if you want to drop your name in the chat, or connect with Lisa, and she can send you the link, the Zoom link for tonight. It's at 6:00 Eastern time. It'll be 5:00 for me because I'm on Central today. But that would be a great way for you to connect, along with just going through the IDOE link and the interest forum as well. Like I said, I plan to be working on CPAC a lot more and shifting more of my time to that. So I would love to be a resource and a connection point for any of you guys with questions from a parent standpoint on how CPAC can be created and run really well. Yeah, I think that's all I have to really say. Yeah. Stephanie, do you have anything that you wanted to, or Lisa?
Oh, thank you, Mindy. I so appreciate it. And Stephanie's going to speak and talk a little bit. So one of the things about the CPAC is, again, it's families and their school districts. It's not IDOE. It's not InSource. We're here. We give some framework. We've helped ask some questions like, how will you publicize? What would it look like? What's the logistics for this? Will you make sure you make it accessible, right, to families in different methods and different times? But it belongs to the community, to the families, and to those school corporations that are going to work together, because that's where the communication occurs, and that's where the complaints get filed that we hope to reduce. So we are excited about everything that's going on, and there are, I think, close to like 10 up and coming or running. So Stephanie, would love to hear from you. Thank you so much, Mindy. And
I don't know how you're having me follow all of that, Lisa.
You can do it, Stephanie.
You guys talk about it. It's brilliant. So there isn't officially a list of all of the CPACs that are in the state. I saw that question in the chat. Do we have a list? That is something that I believe Michelle is working on. Mindy and I, through our statewide CPAC collaborative, have a handful of folks that we know about, and so we are working on coming up with something official. Well, Michelle is. We're just we're just helping out. I can tell you, well, I guess I should tell you who I am. So I'm Stephanie Garner. I am the Director of Parent Support and Education at Down Syndrome Indiana, also parent of a young lady with Down syndrome, and we're in the Plainfield district. And I was attending an Article 7 training with About Special Kids back in like 2018 when I learned about CPACs, and I was like, oh my gosh, this sounds amazing. So we started ours in Plainfield in like 2018, 2019. And at the time, I don't know that there were many others around. So it has truly been a really amazing experience. I kind of de facto became the parent lead of our CPAC. And as Mindy said, there are absolutely bumps along the road. After 5 or 6 years, we're seeing some ups and downs. Sometimes things are really great and we have a lot of participation, and then we see people fall off. But it has been a really beautiful process. And I encourage all parents to participate in your CPAC if you have one, or get to know your administration, because it's such a great way for parents to develop those relationships and for the administration to develop them as well, right? It's beautiful for everyone, and it's so very helpful. Mindy and I, we did start the collaborative. It all came out of our national CPAC guide book club, as we called it. We'd get together every 2 weeks and we reviewed it and we talked about it and we loved it and thought, oh, we want everybody to be able to be a part of this. So we would love for you guys to come to our CPAC collaborative tonight. They're fairly informal. It's a lot of brainstorming, and like Lisa mentioned, this truly is a parent-led initiative. And so while Michelle is going to be on that call tonight, while Lisa's on that call, like, it is our local CPACs that are really kind of running that show. And if you guys have any questions, if you would love to be part of it, absolutely reach out to Mindy, reach out to me, and we would love to to help you, get more involved, or maybe start your own CPAC or start one within your community. So I'll quit rambling now. Do you guys have any questions? Anything you want to know?
Well, anyone who put their email in, I'll make sure we get the link for you tonight from 6 to 7 Eastern time. And again, the exciting part about this is we give some help for formation and creation and support, but it's the families, community members, and the schools that make it work, right? It doesn't belong to IDOE. It doesn't belong to InSource. And as Mindy said, it's actually coming walking along with our family engagement, because as has been talked about, you don't have good special education services without good general education services, and that goes for communication in all areas. Did anybody else have any comments or questions at this time? Michelle, did you have anything else that you wanted to say? And Mindy and Stephanie, I think you just did a great job of discussing the passion that you feel about supporting CPACs across the state. Michelle, did you have anything else?
I did not. I just excited about getting families involved in different ways, and I want to say that one of the things that IDOE is trying to do is engage families beyond that survey. And so the reason why we're bringing up the CPACs today is because when it comes to really easy ways to ensure that we're able to reach out to LEAs in the future and get parents to be able to talk to us, is by being able to go to something like a CPAC and having that focus group ready for us to talk about what goals are you working on right now, what needs are being unmet that you're currently working with your local school corporation to get provided, and we can tweak that survey as much as we can, but we can't make it long enough to truly capture everything that we really need to capture in order to really have a good pulse on what's going on in the state. And so CPACs, if we can get them widespread enough, will allow us to kind of have built-in focus groups. And instead of me reaching out to a special education director and saying, hey, do you get some parent volunteers? We're going to be coming and doing some on-site monitoring in your LEA, and kind of having them handpick who it is. Hopefully that CPAC's in place, and then people who are invested in their building levels then have selected their leadership, and then those leaders can be talking to us, and then they can have their voice heard in a different capacity. And so that's the reason for bringing up CPACs today alongside the parent survey, is because to me they're a way of extending the parent survey in a qualitative way that we just really can't capture through comments and through quantitative meetings with that Likert scale, which is how the survey is set up right now. I can ask you if you strongly agree or strongly disagree or somewhere in between on a variety of statements, but at the end of the day, it's those conversations where I really get to understand what people's needs are, what people are liking, what's going well, what's not going well, and how we can address things. And when we have those meaningful conversations, I've talked about speech language pathologists. We have a speech language pathologist group at the IDOE that's meeting across the state right now, because of the fact that people have come to us over and over again and said, hey, this is an unmet need in the state that we need to address. And so we're actively working on addressing it. And so if we can continue to do that through things like CPACs, that will just make things better across the state. And that's the whole idea, is to have things be as a well-oiled machine as education can ever possibly be. So, yeah, those are my final thoughts. We definitely have a few minutes, so if
Yeah.
anyone has any questions or they want me to reshare some of the links that we've put up today in those QR codes, let us know.
You know, I was just gonna add, if you don't mind, like starting a CPAC can be a very overwhelming experience. There's a lot of documents that you have to create. And so one of the things that we do through the CPAC collaborative is we share information. So if you're starting a brand new CPAC and you're like, I don't even know what to put in a code of ethics, or you know, should my what is it called, the code of ethics and the bylaws, I don't know what my bylaws should look like. We are all sharing information, so you can have access to the Plainfield CPAC code of ethics and bylaws, to the Westfield Washington ones, and other CPACs as well. So you are not having to reinvent the wheel. You can just pull from existing information. And I believe that Lisa and InSource, you guys have templates as well that folks could use for those. So you know, the more we pool our resources together, the easier it is on all of us. So that was all I wanted to add.
That is so correct, Stephanie. And part of both components gauge parent voice, right? So we want schools to know what's going on in the school districts and how parents feel that they're able to participate, and the same with the CPACs. And with the CPACs, they're going to hopefully be doing some needs assessments, right? Which will help show perhaps some issues they didn't know were a problem, or celebrate victories, right? Maybe if they find out transportation is going wonderfully, because there's typically very good things to also celebrate. And that's one of the things that when we talk to directors, a CPAC is not just about what's wrong. It's also about what's right. It's about assessing things and learning things and working together to try to set some goals to better the outcome for all kids, right? And many times directors will be concerned that will take a lot of money, but it doesn't. Many times it's just about some better communication and becoming aware of some problems that directors and administrators might not even know. But because the CPACs have a structured way for families to reach out to that council, whether it's they come in person, they email, and it is promoted through the school on their website or in some way, families know it's a safe place. They're going to learn about things that are going well and things that need perhaps to be addressed. And then they can collect some data on that. That's all that I have at this moment. Does anyone else have anything else? Thank you, Michelle, so much. And Mindy and Stephanie and everyone who is attending or watching later. We have lots of information on our website. Please make sure that you visit insource.org for our trainings, our resources. And again, office hours with IDOE happens the fourth Tuesday of each month during the school year except December. And on the website for InSource, you can find your special education liaison under Get Help and find my liaison. So at this point, I will stop recording our meeting. And I want to thank everyone for joining us today, and have an excellent day. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye, guys.